guys, welcome back. So today's video is going to be a bit of a catch-up. To be totally honest, I don't quite have a specific agenda other than just chatting with you all. I wanted to touch a little bit on what I have read lately, what I am excited to read, what I've been up to, what I will be up to. So it's just going to be a little bit of a casual chat. Obviously, I'm speaking to you, but I want this to be a conversation. So feel free to engage in the comments. Let's chat. I'd love to know what you're reading, what your fall plans are, how your fall has been, all that kind of good stuff. So I've had my second cup of coffee. I am well caffeinated, and let's go ahead and do it. Let's jump into the video. Okay, so it's been a bit of a while, which is totally fine. The first thing that I wanted to talk about, because I really wanted to film a video, but if I'm being honest, I kept drawing a blank on what specifically I wanted to talk about. We are in the throes of fall. I've already had a handful of videos talking about fall-related cozy mysteries, and I would love to know if you guys have read any. I've actually got a couple that I have read that I'm happy to touch on or talk about. But aside from that, I really just wanted to talk about books and life and everything. So before we start with anything else, I have to gush about this book. I picked this up, and I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram, but I picked this up, I want to say the day after it released, so it's been a couple of weeks, because I read it in a span of a couple of days. And when I tell you, this book, 18 million stars out of 5 stars. I loved it so much. So full disclosure, I've actually never read The Thursday Club Murders. I have it. I know it's really good. I just have never gotten around to it. And when I saw that the author had a new book coming out, I was intrigued, mostly because I knew that a lot of people were going to be into it because of the Thursday Club Murder popularity. But I'm like, okay, well, since this is a totally separate series, I feel okay picking it up, and I am so glad that I did. It's so good. I had this whole long Instagram post talking about this book before I even finished it. But basically, this book took me back to a time of how I used to read, before the time of Bookstagram and social media and sharing what you've been reading and being influenced by different people. Just a simpler time where all we had was kind of Goodreads, but really it's like you're rolling into Barnes & Noble, you are looking at the back of each of the books as you're browsing, and you're just picking things up based on what you want to read, and you're finding gems that way. That is what this book reminded me of. So just a quick recap for those of you who don't know what this is about. Essentially, it is about a group of people really just trying to find out who's behind a set of murders that are being pinned on this woman. You get the woman. She is this really kick-ass private security person, and she's been tasked with guarding, right now it's a really famous author, but she's, guarded a lot of famous people in the past, and somebody's basically framing her for murder, and so she's trying to figure out who's behind it before the cops step in and implicate her and arrest her. So you've got the famous and eccentric novelist as part of the group, kind of reined in to figure things out. You've got her father-in-law, who I love his character so much. He is a English retired police officer. You get just a whole cast of characters basically, and it's really just the way that the prose is written. It's so engaging, interesting, fast-paced, but not like overly fast-paced so where there's a lot of gaps in the storyline, and it's just a solid freaking story. I guess I very well could have made this video just a review of this book. I swear that's not what this is turning into, but I could not stop thinking about this book after I put it down. I wanted to talk about it all the time, and I love finding books like that. And even though I, read a lot of books that I enjoy, it's not often that I come across a 5-star read that I just cannot stop thinking about, and this is it. So Anyway, this is one of the books that I have read recently that I wanted to tell you guys about. Another book, let me go ahead and pull up my list that I wanted to talk about that I just finished, is called Some Girls Bite. Now, this is a paranormal, maybe urban fantasy, maybe even, I wouldn't even really call it a romance, though there are romantic elements in it, but huge shout out and thank you to Laura over at What to Read Next podcast, because I hopped on a live of hers. Well, I tuned in a couple of days ago, and she was talking all about books with like paranormal elements and vibes for the season. And she mentioned this series, which is part of the Chicagoland Vampire series, and color me intrigued because I read a while ago the Night Huntress series by Janine Frost and was obsessed, you guys. If you enjoy paranormal fiction or paranormal romance, I highly recommend that series. I loved it so much. The audio is fan-freaking-tastic, and it's super popular, though it's an older series, and I just could not get it out of my head. But with all series that are really good, you're constantly chasing that high of trying to find books that are similar, and everything just came up short. I just could never find one until this series. And granted, I still do love me some Night Huntress series. It's got a special place in my heart, but I feel like this is the first series that has come close to it. Essentially, you get kind of like an outsider who gets introduced to the vampire world. She herself gets turned into a vampire, and you're just following along with her as she is learning about becoming a vampire. All of these like training montages. There's some found family in there because her best friend, and this is not like, well, it could be spoilers, so I don't want to mention it, but like her best friend is involved, as well as some family members. Oh my god, it's so good. And there's enough like twists to where I was like, oh, that's exciting, I didn't see that coming, and it's really, really engaging. So huge shout out to Laura. And I messaged her actually and was like, oh my god, thank you so much for putting me onto this, because it is also a long series, and y'all know I love me some long series backlists. So finished the first book. I've already checked out book 2, and I'm super excited to keep going. So let me know, do you like paranormal romance or urban fantasy, whatever you want to call it? I'm not a super fantasy girly, but I do enjoy paranormal and kind of urban fantasy just because it's more grounded in our reality. So it's not as much of a like brain exercise for me to get acquainted with the world, since it's essentially our world, but just with supernatural elements in it. Okay, so let's see. One of the other books that I wanted to mention that I have read recently is A Murder at the Movies. This is book 2 in Ellie's secret bookcase mystery series, which I'm sure you guys have already heard me rave about the first one. The second book equally holds up. This actually has been out for a while, if I'm being honest, but I was waiting on audio to come out, and I'm so glad that I did, because the narrator of this series is fantastic, and I highly recommend it. If you're not familiar with this series, it's a really good one. So we've got our main character, Annie. She works at a Agatha Christie themed bookshop, and so in the first book there is this kind of murder mystery convention that she hosts in her town, and it became this wild success. And the second book, the second installment, because of the fame of that, we have a movie director who wants to hold a film fest in the town at the bookshop. Of course, somebody winds up murdered, and Annie's really trying to get to the bottom of it. But it's such a wonderful array of characters that I've already fallen in love with, from her coworker to her best friend, her boss, who, by the way, he thinks he's like Agatha Christie's like great grandson or something like that. He feels like he's related to her. So I'm super curious if that's going to pan out anytime during the span of the series. But I will say I am super impressed with Ellie's prolific writing, because not only is she keeping up with the Bake Shop Mystery series, but she has been blowing through this new series, because the first 2 books were a dual release that came out, I want to say summer. Then the third book came out. The fourth book is coming out, I want to say in December. And then we've already got another one that she just announced for Valentine's Day that's coming out. So that's already 5 books in like a little over 6 months. that's amazing. And usually you get like 1 to 2 in a series. So I'm blessed. Okay, so that's enough book talk. Let's kind of switch gears. What other media have I been consuming lately, right? So I have been super into RuPaul's Drag Race. It's one of my absolute favorite shows, and I took a little bit of a hiatus watching it because I wanted the episodes to pile up so that I can binge through them, and binge I did, right? So first of all, if you watch the show, please comment down below. We're gonna have to talk over in my DMs on Instagram because I have lots of thoughts about it. But I have been watching that, loving it. I love seeing all of the creativity, and there's just a lot of touching moments on the show. My husband, I know he's tired of me talking about it because I always talk to him or at him about these characters, and he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but that's fine. I love the show so much. So I've really been into it. I just finished All Stars season 9, and I have moved over to Canada versus the World season 2, and I know that UK season 6 just came out. Guys, I'm so excited about this. You just don't even know. How am I gonna find time to read? But you know, honestly, I'm surprised in myself because when I picked this up, I really was feeling a physical copy. Like I wanted to read it physically. And I think that's what gave me those nostalgic vibes because I went to the bookstore, I went and picked it up just like how I used to, which is before the days of Kindles and audiobooks. I mean, I know audiobooks have been around for a while, but it wasn't as popular, right? And so physically reading a book that I picked up from Barnes & Noble under like the latest release section, oh my God, such a nostalgic throwback hit that I didn't realize that I needed. Total serotonin boost. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so let me put you guys onto this podcast. It's not new, but I have been actually, well, I keep up with the episodes, but I've also been kind of listening to past episodes just because I'm blowing through the episodes a lot quicker than I would like to. And that show is, The Bookish Life of Jess and Tori. I thought it was named something else. But yes, so Jess over at Peace Love Books and Tori over at, oh my gosh, I forget her name. But both of these ladies have YouTube channels, and obviously they're active on Bookstagram. But they have a podcast where they talk all about, obviously, books, more specifically romance books. But they are such a wealth of knowledge. I have been on a couple live shows with Jess. Like I know her. We've never met in person, but anyway, I know that Jess is like the queen of romance knowledge. And so when these ladies get together, they are just dishing out names and titles and like tropes like it's nobody's business, like true experts in the field, which I super appreciate. It's funny because I always listen on my commute and I don't have a way to write any of these down. So I'm always like trying to remember and doing like a voice note on my watch about certain titles for me to pick up. And actually, I believe the last romance that I read was The Playbook by Rebecca Genshak, which they talked about on their podcast. It ended up being a super cute story, kind of a romantic comedy maybe, but I really enjoyed it. So if you are into romance books, if you're into Bookish podcasts, if you're into just podcasts in general, because I feel like these ladies have really great banter, hopefully, I would assume, right, because they're friends in real life, but I absolutely love it. It actually reminds me of the podcast Court, and I have obviously our podcast, Curl Up and Clue In, is about cozy mysteries, but I really like genre-based podcasts because it's like another way to consume media about something that you like other than doing the thing that you like, right? So obviously I can read cozies, I can read romance, but I also like to listen to other people talk about them. Obviously I like to talk about them too, but I can't always do that. And so listening to other people talk about it, knowing that they're just as into it as I am, it makes me so happy. So that's one podcast that I've been into. Another one that I have been into recently is Ellie's podcast, Reality Rights. Now, yes, I am an Ellie fangirl. I talk about her every chance that I get. I am unapologetic about it. However, I do really think that this podcast is a great resource for aspiring authors, regular authors, indie authors, if you're trying to break into that market, even if you want to get like a peek behind the curtain as to the process if you are a reader, because she and her husband, also known as Tech Guy, talk a lot about what goes into the making of a book or a series, or the things that you have to jump through in terms of leading up to release day, and like tips and tricks for authors, and appropriate and not appropriate behavior for readers. Like all of this bookish goodnessness, that's not a word. All of this bookish content from an expert, from an author, and I have been eating it up. Like, it's partially entertaining, partially informative, and so yes, I highly recommend it. There's actually quite a few episodes, so it's perfect if you're just now getting into it. You've got plenty of episodes to catch up on. So that's that. What else? What have I been up to? Really, honestly, I have been relishing in fall. You guys, it is beautiful here in Washington. Just last weekend, we went to Pike Place, which is super fun. We visit quite often, but I have to say, this is so random. This is how I know we're friends and we're talking, because I'm starting to blabber about stuff you probably don't care about. But every time we go, I always get their fruit, and I gotta be honest, like, it's a little marked up, as it should be, because it's kind of a touristy destination, but the fruit is always on point. So I never feel that terrible paying extra for it, because at least it tastes good. This past weekend when we went, I spent $8 on a cup of mango, which, if you don't know, I have a toddler, and if you don't know, toddlers will eat through fruit like it's nothing. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be spending this money regardless, but color me surprised, because it was so good. And like, in the Pacific Northwest in October, for us to have a ripe mango, like, hey, I'll happily pay that much. So that's kind of what I've been up to lately, as far as what I'm going to be up to. And I'll kind of wrap it up here, because I feel like I've blabbed enough. But this time next week, I will be packing, getting ready for the second annual Ashland Cozy Mystery Festival. I am so excited, you guys. Courtney's gonna be there from Courtagonist. Tiff is gonna be there from Beach Bum Bookworm. We actually have a panel together on that Friday where we're gonna be talking all about the cozy mystery community as readers and all of that. But I'm just so excited. I'm excited to hug my girls. I'm excited to be around like-minded, bookish people. It was so fun last year, and this year is going to be even bigger, even better, which is really exciting. So I plan to vlog it. I will say now, it might be chaotic just like last time, just because I was so excited, but I'm going to try to vlog it regardless, and I'm trying to figure out a way to record a podcast episode. We will see. I'm still working out the details with Courtney, but I'm very excited, and let me know if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you want to see about the panel, before the panel, the conference in general. I am happy to recap you guys, obviously, in whatever capacity that you want. So I have talked a lot. This is what I get for having 2 p.m. coffee, because I am wired. But like I said, I really just wanted to sit down and talk with you guys, catch up a little. Let me know, again, in the comments, what are you reading? What have you been up to? How is your fall going? I'm very excited about fall, but I have to say, like, I've kind of been itching for Christmas. I hear little sleigh bells ringing in the back recesses of my mind. So I don't know how long I can put off getting into Christmassy themed stuff. So that said, do not be surprised if I start talking about Christmas stuff soon. Sorry, not sorry. I was gonna say I'm sorry, but I'm actually not, because I love Christmas. But if you have any recommendations for fall books, for Christmas books, recommendations for just books in general, what is the last book that you read? If it was something kind of like 5 stars that gave you those like throwback vibes, or you're just wanting to sit and relish in a book, I need the scoop. So that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. In the meantime, I will talk to y'all later. Happy reading. Bye.